Mountain West update on mediation and membership. College athletics is always in the news, so we're back on the Big Mountain to keep you updated. Hey, it's JY back with the Big Mountain with a Mountain West update. Want to talk about the mediation with the PAC and the departing schools, as well as possible member additions here in the not too distant future. On Friday, I was able to confirm that the mediation is still ongoing between the Mountain West and the PAC-12. If you remember, we're now just ended week 3 of the mediation. It began back on May 19th. This doesn't mean that they have been meeting every day over the last 3 weeks. Could be kind of on and off. And I believe there's a few macro environmental types of issues that have been ongoing here with collegiate athletics that may have been a holdup for solidifying any sort of settlement. Of course, one of them being the House settlement between the NCAA and House, and also another being the governance structure that we're going to get to here in a little bit as well. First, the House settlement. We finally have learned here late on Friday that Judge Wilkins is approving this landmark settlement. While it does not impact the PAC and the Mountain West and the departing 3 members' lawsuits directly, it certainly has significant impacts on all of the conferences and the universities. So it absolutely could have been something where this mediation is close to being done, but they wanted to ensure that this NCAA House settlement was going to be approved prior to approving any sort of settled mediation. The second item here, again, could be this new proposed D1 governance model that's being discussed right now. June 23rd, I believe, is a very important date for that as well. Again, while not directly impacting these lawsuits, it does have massive impact on all D1 NCAA members. So, certainly I could see all of these parties wanting to know the finalization of the House settlement and possibly the governance structure prior to approving a settlement here for these 2 lawsuits. It's also possible that neither are playing a role in this mediation, and we're going to start week 4 of the mediation here today. So again, we're going to have to wait and see what happens, but I do believe these 2 big macro environmental items are, I'm sure, very much on the minds of all of those at the table here in mediation, and they may have wanted just to make sure that at least this House settlement was going to be going through. Next, I want to talk about possible future membership with the Mountain West. I put out a new additions power ranking on X late last week. It's been a little bit since I've been able to talk about that. So I want to add some color to all of the schools that I had here. These are schools that I believe have the most realistic chance to be Mountain West members in the not too distant future. So to go over my chart under possible, I have Tarleton State University as a full member, and I have North Dakota State as a football only member. Under interested, I have the 2 Montana schools, Montana and Montana State. And under unlikely, I have Sacramento State, South Dakota State, New Mexico State, Sam Houston State, and Toledo for football only. Excited to tell you we actually are going to bring Sam Herder on the pod here tomorrow with Steve and I. He's going to give us his top 5 FCS schools that he believes are most ready to move up to the FBS level. That'll be really interesting. I think a lot of the schools I talk about on this episode, he's also going to talk about, but of course he's coming at it from that FCS lens and who really has the ability and wanting to move up to FBS. But for now, I just want to remind everybody, this is who I believe has the biggest chance, the most likely chance to move to the Mountain West. This is not me grading these schools outside of that, and I'll get into the reasons why I have them in these different categories. Let's start here with my possible category where I have Tarleton State and I have North Dakota State. We've talked about both of these schools for almost a year now, have taken deep dives into both of them. Let's talk about Tarleton State here specifically. We've had conversations directly with AD Steve Urias about their preparedness to move to FBS, and they absolutely are preparing for that move and want to make that move in the not too distant future. We also brought on Coach Witten earlier this year to talk to him about the football program, how he is building that. Of course, they made the FCS playoffs here this past year, in their first year eligible to do so. If you want to learn more about this university, please check out either those discussions. We did some other discussions. If you go back about October, November last year, we do some deeper dives on this school. You really need to educate yourself if you're a Mountain West fan, not just write them off. There's a lot to like about Tarleton State. And again, we're going to talk to Sam Herder about this, and we'll see what he has to say. But again, I can tell you, Tarleton is ready to move and wanting to move FBS. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of where they're going to end up, which conference. I certainly hope it's going to be in the Mountain West. Steve and I are huge proponents. You look at where they're located, Central Texas. They've been putting in the investments with their facilities. They have great leadership there. They've had success on and off the court or the field or wherever. And really, they're hard to match in the FCS ranks. They've done fantastic things. So really excited about what Tarleton State has there. And I'm going to be visiting that school here in just a few short months. Let's go on to North Dakota State. I have them down here as football only. The Bison leadership overall is fairly quiet about realignment. Their typical comment when asked about it is, we want to play at the highest level possible. That's kind of what you'll hear from different ADs and stuff. If you're not going to get a whole lot out of them, that's what they'll say, coaches and whatnot. And I'm not knocking that. They hold things close to the vest. They're not out there letting everyone know where they're at and who they're talking to and all that. Some concerns I may have here for the Bison have to do with funding and scholarships. For funding, I'm not so sure it would be a huge issue especially if they're going to be going football only. I certainly think they will have the funds to most likely do that. And that is part of the reason I have them down as football only. As for scholarships, I think it might take them a little bit longer to get that kind of in order, if you will, if they want to make this move. If you remember, they're opting out of the House settlement here in year one. They talked about that several months ago. They cited scholarships as that reason. Now, they were saying, they don't want current athletes to lose scholarships by moving. I've also been told, and I really haven't corroborated or really dug deep into this piece, but they may have some issues with how they're currently allocating their scholarships right now. So something I want to hear from Sam on here maybe tomorrow about both the funding and the scholarships from North Dakota State. But we know they're the cream of the crop when it comes to football championships. And just everybody knows who the Bison are up there at North Dakota State. I think they'd be a great football power within the Mountain West, come in easily in the top half in year one, I do believe. And I'd love to see it. So again, want to be really clear about these top two choices. I have sourced information saying and knowing that communications have occurred with both of these entities. And I think the Mountain West has some degree of interest. Again, whether or not the Mountain West wants to move forward with these additions, we'll have to wait and see if the presidents actually want to continue to add. But I absolutely think these two are at the top of the list if they choose to do so. Let's move on now to the two Montana schools, Montana State. I just moved both of these two schools up into this interested category. When you look at the geography, the academics, just the fit, we heard from Gloria Navarez. She talked about the fit for schools. I don't think you can get two schools that fit any better than Montana and Montana State. Awesome schools. They look just like Mountain West schools. I do have a few questions about these schools, and it's twofold. One is really just that drive and that readiness or willingness to become FBS programs. I don't know if the administration, the fans, and the alumni really want to move to FBS. I think a lot of them are very happy with where they are, and where they are is a phenomenal place. I've also had some questions about funding, and I have been told recently that these two schools do not have the appetite to make this jump, and I don't think they have the state funding to make this jump. They would absolutely need, in my opinion, more state money in order to do this, and I'm not sure the appetite is there. And I do think these schools are likely going to be tied together. We'll talk about South Dakota State and North Dakota State later, but I think these two schools would probably have to go together if they're going to go, and I think the state would need to be funding them at a higher level, at least for athletics, than what they are now. I'm not sure it's there. Again, want to talk to Sam about that and see what his take is. I can tell you this, they're very happy in the Big Sky, which is an outstanding conference. We talked with Big Sky Commissioner Wistersill last week. He told us that they're having ongoing discussions and conversations about membership, and really what's the right fit for the members. There's pros and cons to going to FBS, and I'm not sure the pros outweigh the cons for these two institutions. And again, we'll see what Sam has to say. He might correct me if I'm wrong on that. Now, let's move down to the unlikely category. Again, not a shot at these universities in any way. I just don't think they're likely to become Mountain West members anytime soon. Let's start with Sacramento State. The Hornets are FBS or bust. President Wood has said that many times. I believe that June is going to be a very big month for Sacramento State and this university here, with news about their football program. Of course, they have that FBS application in right now. I think we're going to get an answer here in the next few weeks on that. And then with that, a potential move of their Olympic sports to another conference. I'm being told that's pretty much ready to go as well. And then more news on their facility enhancements, more news on their football stadium. So be on the lookout for more news here. And, this is all great stuff for them. And our fans know, our dwellers know, we follow them really closely. I don't think the Mountain West is interested in Sacramento State. And really, that was solidified for me. I've been saying that for a while, but that was solidified for me when UC Davis got that invite. And it's clear that the Mountain West, one of the driving features behind the Mountain West editions, was this DMA, in terms of viewership. And I think who they added was great. I think they're great fit members. UTEP, fantastic fit. Frankly, they probably should have been in the Mountain West long ago. But when you look at the markets here that they've added, Phoenix and Chicago with NIU, El Paso, Sacramento with UC Davis, Sac State is just not additive in that regard right now. And I hope for the best here, and I really hope for big things moving forward for Sac State. Just really not on the map, in my opinion, right now for the Mountain West. Let's go to Sam Houston next. The Mountain West did reach out. We talked about that many months ago, reached out to Sam Houston last fall. The response that they got, at least that we heard, was that Sam Houston wanted to stay in Conference USA and help build that program. I believe it's probably mainly due to Sam Houston State not being able right now to hit the benchmarks that the Mountain West would have for funding and facilities. We asked Gloria Navarez about that. Of course, she can't get into the details of what those are, but there is going to be minimums that the conference is expecting from their partners, and I'm not so sure Sam Houston could meet those metrics within a certain time frame. I think they have a ways to go facility-wise to get up to speed with other FBS conferences, and I think they are happy in Conference USA until they're able to do that. So that's where Sam Houston's at right now. Toledo was really interesting here when it first came out that Gloria Navarez had reached out, I guess, to the commissioner of the WAC early on about both NIU and Toledo. NIU's interest was pretty immediate, and it was kind of known that they did have some interest, and we all know how that played out here over the last couple months as they were named as a football member moving forward to 2026. Toledo, on the other hand, I always viewed as a bit more of a stretch. Of course, they're out in the Eastern time zone, just north of Detroit. So again, looking at DMAs, I can understand why one of the reasons why they were looked at by the Mountain West would have been a football-only member. I think the Rockets really want to stay in the East, Central East time zones. That's kind of where their footprint is. That's where they want to be. I do think they like the model that NIU is using here in terms of breaking football away. I could absolutely see Toledo using that same type of model. I just don't think the Mountain West was the right fit for their football team. I think they're going to be looking for another FBS conference if they are able to go down that model. Let's talk about New Mexico State next, the school that seems to be just left out of all the conversations in the West with realignment. I think they're in the same predicament as Sac State is in, at least for the Mountain West. The Mountain West chose UTEP in that market there. And, New Mexico State's just not additive from a DMA standpoint. And clearly the Mountain West thought UTEP was the better fit for right now. And that's who they're going to be adding. There are some rumors about New Mexico State to the PAC. Maybe, they get them on more of a bargain deal. But I just don't see New Mexico State being at play with the Mountain West at this time. Last one, South Dakota State. The question everybody asks when you bring up either of the Dakotas is, can they be separated? I think the answer is absolutely yes. I think they totally can be separated. I talked about how the Montanas maybe not so much, but I do believe that the Dakotas totally can be separated. If NDSU got that and they were ready to move, got the invite and ready to move, they absolutely would. And they would leave the Jackrabbits behind. And maybe the Jackrabbits absolutely want to be left behind and they're happy in FCS. But I don't think they're tied together. And because of that, NDSU, I know there's interest there. And, I think if the Mountain West were to go after one of their schools, they're going after the Bison, and they're not going after South Dakota State. Again, we'll see what Sam has to say about my opinions on those two things. So that is my color behind my chart for additions. I know some of you have seen this before, but I thought it'd be helpful to bring you an update, helpful to add, again, more information behind why I have these schools where they're at on this chart. And again, we're going to hear from Sam tomorrow. Make sure you tune back and hear what he has to say. One of the best minds of FCS schools and potential movement to FBS. So I'm anxious to hear from Sam tomorrow. So with that, we thank you guys for watching this. We'll stay on everything college football and realignment. I think June is going to be a very, very busy month. We've already had some items come out, but I think there's a lot more yet to happen here, and we'll be on top of all of it here on the Big Mountain. Make sure you smash the like button and you subscribe if you like our content. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.